Welcome back to Digbits TV. I'm going to talk to you today about teeth, not these teeth, my example of bad British dentistry, but these teeth, mini excavator bucket teeth. So stay tuned and find out. Right, so teeth. I'm going to talk just about the types of teeth you're going to see on anything that is ranging from the micro digger sized machines up to sort of 6 to 9 ton midi excavators. And this array of teeth is what we use and fit on our buckets, plus there's a few things that other people fit on them, so we'll run you through those. We're just going to run you through the different sizes and where there are some choices or compromises within the range, so that you can figure out when you're looking at buckets, whether it's our buckets or somebody else's, you've got some sort of information as to what might be suitable for the jobs that you're trying to do. First tooth is this little one down here, which we no longer fit. You do still see it around a bit on micro diggers. Back in the sort of late 80s, early 90s though, this little, what they call a one-leg tooth, because it's just a single leg, it just bolts on and the bolts do all the holding of the tooth onto the cutting edge. These were fitted on quite a lot of things. JCB persevered with them on their 1.5 to 1.9 ton mini diggers for quite a long while. They're all right, but the problem with them is that because they haven't got a leg underneath the cutting edge, that all of that leverage on the tooth when you're digging, all of that leverage is going through the fasteners, and they can stretch, wear, break, so they're just not as strong. You can, on certain applications if you need to, you can weld these as well because they are a forging, but we sell them as replacement parts, but it's not something we've fitted to any of our buckets for a long time. So next up in size is this, which is what we're fitting to our 1, 2, 3 ton mini excavator buckets. This is a 2-leg bolt-on tooth, and you can see on this end of this cutting edge assembly that we built a long time ago, this fits down here on this 16mm gauge of steel, and that is a good tooth. It's nice and sharp, and we've been fitting those and using those for a long time, and other than in heavy duty applications, that is what we use. If we're going to build a riddle bucket or a multi-screen bucket or something a bit heavier, then this tooth gets swapped out for one of these, which we'll come on to in a bit, so an adapter with a replaceable tip. We use these. Quite a few people use this tooth, and this tooth is paired up with a left and right hand side cutter and corner tooth combined. There's a couple of reasons why. These are a nice tooth, they're strong, but they're quite chunky. So in terms of like your ground penetration, especially when these are worn, if you're looking at the profile of these things, then this is a bit sharper. It's actually doing what a tooth should do, which is penetrate into the ground. These can be quite blunt. The other drawback is that where you've got this set up, and obviously you're using the tooth with the side cutter combined, so these form your side cutters on the bucket. The issue is if you want to take these off when you're digging cable trenches or something like that, you've also got, as well as no teeth for hooking, so you're not going to hook up cables or pipes, you've also got the disadvantage that on those, you've taken all the side wear protection off, whereas with ours, we weld a side cutter onto the side of the bucket, and that stays on when you take the teeth off, so you can have a complete flat-bladed bucket, but still retaining some protection up the sides of the bucket to stop it wearing out prematurely. The next size of tooth up, which is this one, runs on a 20mm edge, and again, it's paired up like with side cutters and corner teeth, and these are the good old trusty JCB 3CX tooth, and the gauge on that one is 20mm or 3/4 inch plate, and these are great. These work very well on sort of 4 ton and upwards buckets, obviously on the backhoe buckets, and we do a lot of these with JCBs. They're a good tooth, not expensive. We use a lot of them. Again, it's a slight increase in the thickness there from 16 to 20 mil, so it's an upgrade in terms of strength, which is why they're used on the slightly bigger buckets. We use a lot of those, but on buckets for backhoes now, I mean, back in the old days, you've got to realise these JCB teeth were designed a long time ago. They were designed, you know, when the original backhoes were out. And machines have progressed a lot. So a backhoe these days has got quite a lot more breakout force. So on a bucket width where the bucket is, the actual cutting edge on the bucket is wider than about somewhere between either 2 foot or 2'6", so that sort of width, we would not use this cutting edge. We would go up in size to a 20 mil edge, because on that width, you start to get the danger. With the power of modern machines, they can actually bow a 20 mil cutting edge quite easily. So we would switch up to the next size of edge and the next size of tooth. So we then start to get onto what we call the Caterpillar type system, which is basically a copy of the very old Caterpillar style pin and retainer tooth. So we have two sizes of these here. So this size, which runs on the similar gauge to the 3CX style tooth, the JCB style bolt-on tooth, 20 mil gauge. This, with its replaceable tip, we would run, as I've said before, on the mini excavator buckets that run the bolt-on tooth, this is the heavier duty alternative. So you're welding this adapter on, it's a lot heavier and a lot stronger than the standard tooth, and you've got the wear replacement. So that is what we would use on the mini excavators as the heavier duty option. And then for sort of 6 to 9 tonners and backhoes, when you've got a bigger cutting edge, you then might go up to this size, which is a 25 mil edge. Again, a lot bigger on the adapter and a lot bigger on the tip. So that's the sort of assembly size compared to the tooth on the backhoe. It's a bit of a longer tooth as well and a lot heavier duty, a lot more wear. Now, if you're not familiar, a lot of people are familiar with the Caterpillar style tips, but if you're not familiar, how these work, you've got the adapter, which is welded to the bucket, and you've got the tip. There's a little C-shaped washer, which if I hold that up to camera, you can see the break in it. That C-shaped washer fits in here, and then the retaining pin's just got a little step in it. So you put the washer on, put the retainer on, and then you have that step on the side that the retainer's on, and basically you'll just wallop this in until it drops flush with this. And basically it's that grip between the retaining washer and this that's holding the tip on. So effectively, you'll see also that before they're assembled, there's a little bit of an offset in there, so you couldn't physically drop this through until it's properly hit home. So it's quite snug, it's quite secure. It brings us on to one of the points where people are trying to identify what size, if they have got these teeth, because there are some tooth systems that look remarkably similar. There's, for example, there's a proprietary one from Komatsu, and I think some of the Korean firms have proprietary ones which look like this, but instead of them being flat at the back, there's a bit of a bow. So if you can't stand the tip up like that on the flat, it's probably not a cat type tip. If it is a cat type tip, a lot of people will say, oh, I want a new tooth, I'm going to measure the old tooth. But the problem with that is that's worn. And you can get different styles where there's a little bit more, well, even on this one, you can see there's just a little bit more wear material on that around the pinhole. So the safe way of identifying which Caterpillar tip you've got is by measuring the length of the pin in millimeters and the diameter. And that always gets you the right tip. With this type of system as well, you can have different styles of tips. So you can have longer ones, shorter ones, sharper ones for better penetration in hard ground. ones with extra wear protection on, they'll all run with the same pin within the same series of tooth. So this is just the size of teeth that we do up to 6 to 9 tonners. You go up again on like the 10 to 14 tonners or the 18 to 28 tonners that we build, bigger teeth again, but all work on exactly the same principle, all look the same. But that is the key to knowing which teeth you've got if you're on Caterpillar teeth. And then mini excavator teeth, all of them, all work the same way. That what you want to know is essentially what the centers are front to rear, from the center of the front hole to the back. So that's really, if you're looking on the vernier, that's kind of that measurement there. This one's got a slotted hole at the back, so it kind of helps because you can be a little bit less accurate. And then the gauge, which basically is what gauge of plate that tooth is designed to go on. Obviously, if it's installed on a machine, you can measure the cutting edge, but make sure you're not measuring a worn bit of the edge. And if the bucket is quite showing a lot of wear, take the tooth off and measure the bit that's been protected from wear that's underneath one of the teeth that's on. But basically that's the 2 dimensions that identify what bolt-on teeth you need. So if you go on our website, there are diagrams, all of the teeth that we sell as spare parts. There is also a corresponding dimension diagram of that tooth. And it's very simple to work out which one you've got. But obviously, you get the wrong tooth. You know, if you order one of these teeth, which is a 16mm edge, instead of one of these, you can see that where the slots are, that the bolt holes, if you line the slots up, the bolt holes do not line up. So that tooth will not fit on a bucket with that tooth, or vice versa. So it's important to get the right thing. We stock certainly on bolt-on teeth, we'll stock most of the teeth that you'll ever come across. Whether we've built a bucket or somebody else has, we'll probably have the right replacement part in stock. But it is a case also then of looking, if you're buying buckets, as I say, when you're on something that's 6 to 9 tons, have a look at the hardware that's on the buckets. When you look, especially if you're just comparing prices, just try and have a look at what's fitted on the bucket, because above a certain size, these teeth do a good job, but they're only on a 20mm edge. That's the maximum that tooth can fit over. You really want to go up in size to 25mm, which doesn't sound a lot, but you know, if you're going up from 20 to 25mm, it's a 25% increase. You know, if you're a gym person, lifting 25% more than your maximum lift, it's a big ask. If you're a golfer, someone asks you to drive 25% further than the furthest you've driven. It's a big difference, and same with the bucket teeth. So they look the same, but what they will actually do, massive, massive difference. So that's really where I would say you can find people make cost savings on bucket specs, but also if you're looking for something to be a little bit heavier duty, that's one of the things that is a big, big driving advantage. Plus the fact you can change the tips a lot faster, because usually these bolts, they'll get worn out, they'll get burred over. You usually end up having to cut them off with a grinder or a gas axe. These, you just get a pin, something in the side to just literally drive these pins out of the teeth. And you can usually change a set of the Caterpillar style teeth a lot faster than you can change the bolt-on teeth, especially if they've been on for a while. Final point about cat tips, be really careful, don't be lazy changing them, because we've seen people come in with tips and they've literally worn all the way back and worn through the wall of this. So they've actually started wearing the nose of the adapter, and obviously that fit between the inside of the tip and the adapter is pretty crucial at keeping the thing retained, stopping it chattering. If they chatter enough, they can rattle the pins out if it's extreme circumstances. So if you have got these style of teeth, you're better off not being too miserly and too lazy about when you change them. Otherwise you end up having to burn off the adapters and weld new ones on, and that's a whole world of cost and pain. So you're better off just keeping that as something that you keep your eye on, and just keep it on your maintenance checks, just to see what's on the go with the wear. Same with the bolt-on teeth. just give the buckets a bit of a rattle to make sure that none of the fasteners have come undone, because if they have and you keep working them, you'll snap the fastener and you'll lose a tooth, and again then it's damage to the bucket or extra wear. So just keep an eye on the teeth, because they're the things that are basically breaking the ground up ahead of the bucket going into it. So if you've got decent teeth on a bucket, it saves an awful lot of wear up the chain in the bucket linkages and bushes. Potentially it's also saving you a bit of diesel as well, because you're not having to pull as hard to get the bucket through the ground. So the teeth are really where it's at. That's right at it. So as I say, keep an eye on your teeth. Look on our website, they're in the spare parts section. If you need any teeth for buckets, you can find them there. So, you know, that's the way you want to be looking. And thanks for watching the video. Hope it's been useful. And if you've enjoyed it, like and subscribe, and we'll see you on the next one. Thank you.